Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. Sorry about that. I saw me say something. I had the mute on. Not great, not professional. I know we got a new audience, but we're gonna have fun for the next hour. At least as much fun as you can have talking about the military-industrial complex nightmare that has been created post-World War II, the asymmetrical warfare that really has been waged on an entire global populace via a minute amount in the predator class through these mechanisms of control, through compartmentalization, through psychological warfare, through biological warfare. And, it's not just the military. There's a reason we talk about Edward Bernays here and all these Bernaysian PR propaganda talking points, because when we talk about the military-industrial complex, we really are talking about the media military-industrial complex as well. So without further ado, you know him, you love him. He's a UFC legend, Hall of Famer, coach, fighter, kick-ass guy. He is Pat Miletich. You can follow him at Armageddon's Fire on Twitter. Mr. Miletich, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, Jason. I'm good. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for having me over.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I always like to do some tech stuff. And, when me and Pat are usually doing it, I'm in the same room with him. The problem with that is he always goes off the mic on the side because he's looking at me and we're trying to have a conversation. And I had some new gear, thanks to you guys that have been great, supporting me. And Pat knows that I'm looking into getting a building and I'm trying to get all this equipment. And I had some new road gear and I thought to myself, why don't I just take this laptop, hook it up with some of my road gear, check it out, put it up with my TV, throw Miletich in my living room and show him, hey, he could do this too pretty easily. I mean, it's a pretty basic setup you got going on there, Pat, right?
No, it is. And you are a tech guru, so you can slap stuff together really quick. And I'm going to end up having to pay you because I'm starting a whole new. I've got to go a whole new route with podcasting away from the conspiracy farm and all the other stuff, and just do solutions, buddy. All about solutions.
And I want to talk about those too, because I think that one of the big things is once you're able to identify the enemy's tools, you are much, much less susceptible to those tools. Now, that being said, we are all subject to this psychological warfare in that our subconscious absorbs things that sometimes we don't even realize that are there. These things are subconsciously, hypnotically implanted not only into the mindsets of individuals, but entire societies. And if there's anything that's shown that mass hypnosis is possible and mass Stockholm syndrome is possible, it has been this COVID 1984 nightmare that we've all been living through now for almost 2 years. You thought the war on terror was bad? Hold my beer, Pat Miletich.
Well, that's something that we recognized. Obviously, this was coming, and we saw it very clearly, Jason. And it's unfortunate. And I can say this to people. People still. It's amazing that 2 years into this almost, and people still call me or you or anybody else that sees what's going on. Tinfoil hat wearers and stuff. That's how deep the Stockholm syndrome is, and it's very real. So, give you an example. Two really intelligent guys, a director and producer of, I won't say the network, but it's a major network, sports programming. And I was having dinner with these guys in a city during all of this, and they were going off about they're left leaning guys politically, and they're going off on the right, and calling everybody Trump tards and everything else. And that's when I had to get them to at least understand and come to a common ground with me first before I could kind of explain things to them and say, I think we can agree that physical war is to steal the resources of nations, give them to very powerful people, and enrich those powerful people. We can understand and come to an agreement on that. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And I said, so what makes you think asymmetrical warfare is any different? And they're, what do you mean? They don't even know what asymmetrical warfare is. And I would guess that. I mean, what's your percentage guess on what percentage of Americans even understand what asymmetrical warfare is, let alone that it's actually been taking place for quite a while longer than the past 20 months?
Well, I don't even know if I could give you a percentage on that. I'm not even sure, for instance, Pat, how many people are aware of the concept of compartmentalization outside of like a Hollywood movie where, they kind of understand, oh my goodness, it's the sneaky guy with all the power at the end that's the evil person. But they always give you the winks, right, through the middle. They don't
Yeah.
understand that in real compartmentalized situation. And it's not just mafia, right? Because mafia is a very small level, right? You talk about capos and dons and heads of family and all these other people trying to get in. There's a small
Right.
pyramid there. With just the military alone, and they realized this post-Manhattan Project, they were able to take multiple levels of highly intelligent people, have them working in conjunction with one another, and none of them really realizing until you got up at the upper echelons of Oppenheimer, and his buddies, what was really going on. Those people didn't know they were working on a nuclear bomb. Most of them had no idea. And post-World War II, when the Allies, especially the United States, not only realized this, but when they started going into Germany and they realized, hey, wait a minute, Dow Chemical? This is a bio weapons factory. These are dug into the ground. Well, these are even more sophisticated than what we built, right? Because they built an entire city around this thing. The Nazis were like, we'll build the cities underground. That's what we'll do. We'll build. And they're like, brilliant. And that's the whole, cyclical thing. It's like, we've seen so many World War II movies. Hell, I just, I don't pick up the video game sticks much. You're over. We watch fights usually on it, right? But
Right.
I have always, and hate me for this, guys, I've always been a sucker for first-person shooter World War II era, right? Everybody wants to shoot the evil Nazi. That's embedded in me since Doom or Wolfenstein. Right. So I actually started, it's got to be 3 years ago, I picked up that white Xbox that's sitting in front of you, right? And it came with a package deal of Call of Duty World War II, right? Didn't touch it. And just I had the urge, man. So like literally a week and a half ago, I picked it up. The graphics are beautiful. I remember storming the beaches of Normandy 20 years ago with Medal of Honor, and I was blown away how good it was then. This is like, dude, when you pull up to the thing, that scene from what is it?
Saving Private Ryan?
Yes. The first scene, and I saw that in the theater. I wasn't ready for it. Where they get mowed down. This scene in this game makes that seem like a Disney movie, like a Disney cartoon. It's so brutal. And it's wild. And you're in there, and it's like, well, you relive it. But then you have to take back, and you have to say, wait a minute. There was only 23 people prosecuted at this Nuremberg Code we think that holds so much weight and we talk about. Wait a minute. There's still 600 million documents about Operation Paperclip and how we divvied up the Nazis. And not like we traded them like baseball cards. It's like who could get there first. And then if they got them first, we would run programs like Operation Harass to go get the Horton brothers, for instance, who developed the flying wing, basically what we would see later as stealth technology. And Lord knows what else they did. So you find out Werner von Braun heads up NASA, that NASA only has 20% to do with space travel. What do they do in the other 80% of the time? We've shown the documents. You and I get that. I would say the amount of people that get that, forget about asymmetrical warfare and that term or even compartmentalization. The people that get what happened post-World War II and the national security state we built around it and what the military-industrial complex truly means, what Eisenhower was really warning about, less than 1%, unfortunately, Pat.
Yeah, so, this is interesting, and it took time to figure this out for me. And it all happened really when I was teaching kids martial arts and coaching fighters and all that sort of stuff. Started, obviously, 30 years ago or so. But, when I was teaching 5-year-old to 10-year-old kids, all the way up to professional fighters, parents would bring their kids in and they'd say, little Johnny has autism or he has severe ADHD and we want him to work on his focus and concentration and, getting better in school and, all that sort of stuff. And that's when I started learning about all the drugs that these kids were on. And, come to learn nowadays, it's basically forms of meth that they've put these kids on. That meth was used, by Hitler and his forces, by our forces even, I've come to learn, to keep them awake for days and be able to fight, So as I look back and I learned this over a period of time, first with the kids was I'd look at the parents and I'd say, so our goal is to get your little Johnny off of this drug, right? And they're like, well, the doctors say, I can never get off of this. And now there were several kids that, many kids that we were able to get off of those drugs and talking about diet and things like that. And then we come to the fighters that I would train, and fighters would come from all over the world. And many of the foreign fighters would all say the same thing, Jason. They stayed in little one-room efficiency apartments across the alley from my old gym. And guys from Brazil, guys from England, guys from all over the place. They would go to the grocery store to go get groceries, and they'd come back to the gym after getting groceries, and they'd say, your grocery stores it's disgusting. I mean, the vast majority of everything in your grocery store is poison. This is the most disgusting thing. He goes, I mean, all these fighters would say, now we see why Americans are fat. It's unreal. They couldn't believe their eyes what they were seeing. And so all of this stuff are, part of the chemical part of asymmetrical warfare that's been laid down for, many years, 30, 40 years that this has gone on. The processed foods, the drugs, to millions of children have been raised. 2 generations of children. We're 2 generations into this for these kids that have been raised on this garbage. And then what I recognized was, they're prosecuting the parents of this kid that went and shot up the school and killed 3 classmates. And I said, you know what? A friend of mine from Detroit posted, and he goes, good, man, the parents need to die. And this is the problem, Jason, is that America only looks on the surface. They don't see, and this is where I used to say, no, you're responsible for your own actions. This kid is responsible for his own actions, right? Now, this is society, man. And I'm to blame. You're to blame. Everyone is to blame for accepting the garbage in our grocery stores, for buying it, for eating it in the first place, for allowing children to be put on these drugs. Because I said way back then, 25, 30 years ago, I said, these kids are going to be raised on these drugs their entire life. And then they're going to get to an age where they're an adult and they're taking off mom and dad's medical and they can't afford the drugs anymore. And now life comes at them in full color and they're going to lose their shit. And that's exactly what started happening with the mass shootings. 95% of all mass shootings are perpetrated by individuals who have been raised on these drugs. And that, my friends, is the truth. And people don't want to face the truth, especially the people that want to get rid of guns or the people that are mouthpieces to get rid of guns, because ultimately, look, poisoning millions upon millions of children with these drugs and costing people's lives, that's what they're willing to do to get rid of our guns, to take, our right to defend ourselves, right? That's just part of this. But again, the food, destroying America's health, not only does your health go away when you eat this garbage and you get fat and you get diabetes and you get heart disease and everything else that goes with it, well, your gut bacteria is destroyed. So now you start losing your mind too, because the chemicals that your stomach gives off, it's called the second brain for a reason, that dictates your thought processes. And so I didn't even realize I was allergic to gluten. I used to make fun of what the hell is a gluten allergy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had horrible arthritis for 10 years and my thought processes weren't the same. And a guy did blood tests on me and he goes, you'll be dead in 3 years from a heart attack if you don't stop eating this stuff. You have so much inflammation in your body. You have 3 forms of arthritis, dude, and your arteries are going to get blocked from this. So I started realizing that I eat bread every once in a while, but last night when we were here watching the fights, but man, I stay away from that stuff as much as possible.
Well, hold on. Let me stop everybody there. Just so everybody knows, when he comes over and we watch the fights and he's talking about bread, we're talking about bread with a burger or bread with a piece of chicken. The worst we do are like hot dogs, sometimes the sausages. Usually, even like the side you brought had broccoli in it yesterday. It was like a salad. We don't sit here and munch on chips and Cheetos and all that stuff at my house.
Yeah, we had broccoli as a side dish.
Yeah.
So therefore,
but totally in sugar, right? Like that's the thing. It's in like that raisin sauce, and that like they're blasting it with sugar on top of it. I get it, man. I mean, let's go back to the serotonin reuptake inhibitors because I don't want to get too far away from what you said about these school shootings and these mass shootings. We can get into food in a second, but when we're talking about the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, one of the features of these mass shootings, and they do happen without government intervention, guys. I want people to go back to that awful mass shooting on that bar street where the guy ended up killing his sister, and just was spraying everybody. He was on all of those drugs. I did big, and here's the thing. I'm not just trying to blame the drugs, but when you're causing mass psychosis in someone's brain on a level that they didn't have before and encouraging it, and then you have to put in all of your commercials for all of these products may cause suicidal thoughts or actions and may cause depression to get worse. They should not be on the market at all. And let's just be honest with ourselves. Life was never meant to be joyful and easy all the time. It's not for the people with even the most resources, the most money, okay? The biggest houses, the prettiest wives. I assure you, we all have heartache, we all have difficulties. But when you really think to yourself, what do I enjoy? What's more fulfilling than just the late night out at the bar or, the day out at the casino? It's human relationships and it's goals and accomplishments. Those things are what everybody should be focusing on if you want to better your mental health. And a lot of that comes with what you were talking about, being physically healthy, right? Because again, you think that gluten allergy is a joke, but when we talk about asymmetrical warfare, it really is across the board from Twinkies to tablets, man. You're not wrong on that. That's a great association. It goes from Bernaysian and Orwellian into Huxley and him warning about a society that is constantly under this type of manipulation with drugs and propaganda. And I don't know if you remember this, because I always like talking about Hollywood and how they sneak things in. And I'm going to give a big shout out to Joseph Skelton here. I'd love to get him on the program. I haven't talked to him in years. But he did a great piece on his website way back in the day that showed the original Batman movie with Jack Nicholson. You remember that one? That's more our era, right, Pat? Now, if you remember, his plan to kill people was that he was going to put ingredients in certain foods, certain shampoos, and if you used the one shampoo and you didn't have the food, you'd be fine. But it was a combination of these things that if you had the wrong combination, you would die. And it was almost an allegory or a metaphor for the reality that at the time, I think that movie came out in 1989. I was 10 years old, guys. The reality we were starting to face as a society, and we didn't even realize it, Pat.
Well, yeah, and these combinations, as you talk about, so the kids eat the food. The kids get inflammation of the gut bacteria, causes problems with thinking, causes obesity, all kinds of sickness, inflammation, which causes all kinds of haywire things to happen to the body. They can't sit still in school, which boys aren't intended to, and most girls aren't intended to sit in a desk for 8 hours a day anyway, and lose their mind and get fidgety. Then they say, I had a teacher suggest to me, my oldest daughter, when she was in 5th grade, teacher started leaning towards hinting around that my daughter needed, like a Ritalin type drug or something. And I had to look at her and go, don't go there. Don't even try that. Don't try that with me. And so a lot of these kids, these teachers think that they can diagnose now a kid with autism and why it's happening, or not even understanding what they're saying. And then they go to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist prescribes them, which talk about a major, major mistake of allowing these people to prescribe, psychotropic drugs to children. And now you've got these children on these drugs. So it's a double whammy. These kids have no chance, bro. These kids have no chance whatsoever. And so when we talk about the inhibitors, the aluminums, the parabens, and all this stuff that's in, our deodorants and our shampoos and our skin conditioners and all this other stuff, your skin is your largest organ. You're going to absorb whatever you put on it. And that's, we see this mass feminization of boys and men, and it's been going on forever. I mean, why on earth would they put square dancing in gym class when I was doing judo and all kinds of stuff like that?
I remember that. Like there were the two things I remember, and the thing was, you were so young when they did the square dancing that it was still kind of icky for the girls and boys to touch hands, right? You still were in a dating age, so they would let you come in with gloves. So if you had like winter mittens, Pat, you were allowed to bring those in. You know what? One of the chemicals that you haven't mentioned, and by the way, I mean, there are articles out there that literally that are called this, Pat, you are half the man your father was, when they're talking about men and testosterone levels. And I'll never forget it. One of the longest relationships I ever had, was this girl named Laura. And Laura, if you're out there, still love you to this day. You were always great. I'm a douche. All I can say. But I remember
You screwed it up.
You know what? She was always a great girl, and I've got nothing negative to say about her. So I met her, Pat, on the cusp of making loose change as a pizza guy, wise talking, right? So she basically saw this evolution of this guy because she was a college Long Island girl, right? That kind of was the dropout bad boy pizza guy with a crazy dream, and evolve into like she was in New York City with me on the 5th anniversary of 9/11, and she was meeting Alex Jones with me and all these other things. And I remember we were having this conversation at one point, and I was telling her, I go, listen, not only do like soup cans leak bisphenol A, BPA, but it's in the majority of plastics that everything is being served in, and mostly even water now, because we're all buying water. Again, our generation, I remember Dennis Miller used to crack jokes about, and Lewis Black, they used to be cracking jokes about bottled water and how it could never take off. By the way, they all drink it now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I tell her this and I go, and they're feminizing men. And she goes, Jason, that's just too far. That's not really happening. And that one took about, I think it was 6 or 7 years before it was headlines in mainstream media that indeed bisphenol A was leaking these estrogen-like chemicals that were feminizing people. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. That's not comfortable. Why would they do that? Because they don't want a masculine-driven alpha population that challenges their goals, their mindset, their transhumanist agenda, Pat. And this is the road to eroding our very humanity, our very health, under the guise of helping us. Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and what you just watched was only 20 minutes of an over hour-long conversation I had with Pat Miletich on asymmetrical warfare, Bernaysian societies, and much more. You can catch the rest of that free over at the Rockfin. Go create at least that free account. Follow me over there if you want to support the broadcast. It is $9.99 a month or $99.99 for the year. You hit subscribe. You don't just get Jason Burmis's premium material, which is few and far between because, hey, this information is important. You get everybody's premium material, including Whitney Webb of Unlimited Hangout and much more. TLAV, anybody? So make sure to go over to Rockfin, check the rest of this interview out, and support freedom of speech. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate it.